You're very welcome back. Now, the Channel 4 drama series It's a Sin has put a spotlight on the conversation surrounding HIV and AIDS, particularly with regard to how far we've come since those early days in the 1980s when the virus first came to prominence.
And joining us this morning to discuss are Adam Shanley, who is Empower Programme Manager at HIV Ireland, and also Sandy Preston, who's been living with HIV since 1999 and is also the co-founder of Positive Now, a group of people living with HIV who offer peer support to others living with HIV. Good morning, Adam, and indeed good morning, Sandy. Sandy, we'll start with you first. It's a Sin is one of the most talked about shows, certainly at the moment. Have you been watching it? And what's your reaction to its portrayal of gay men in the 80s?
Yes, I've watched it. I thought it was a great series. I thought it was a well-balanced series. And it was quite true to form, you know. The gay community back then was a vibrant community, full of life and I suppose a lot of sexual endeavours which this gentleman had.
You are living with HIV since 1999, and what I had said before we lost you was that at the time you had been told you 2 years to live. This was a different time, different perceptions of HIV and AIDS. Can you take us back to that time, please, Sandy?
Yeah, it was a scary time, you know, to be given a diagnosis like that. But to finish that sentence, I would have gone on to develop an AIDS-related illness within 2 years if I hadn't gone on medications. So I went on medications immediately, and I started to do extremely well. The only difference back then, there was an awful amount of medication to be taken on a daily basis, and you had immediate side effects, whereas now there's a big improvement in medications where you can be down to 1 tablet a day, and the side effects will be more long-term than immediate. So that was the difference in my diagnosis. I would have experienced, you know, stigma back then, as you had said earlier, in relation to the cups, people not sharing cups. I had that experience when I visited, you know, people that cups were destroyed, and anytime I went again, I got a new cup. You know, people stopped hugging me. You know, you had external stigma from you know, outside the gay community, within the community, and then you had your own internal stigma from being diagnosed. You felt, you know, you had the shame of contracting the illness, and then the fear of letting other people know, fear of entering relationships, and would you be loved? I mean, they were important issues for me.
And how is life now, Sandy? Obviously, you've told us the advances in the medication, going from the likes of 15 tablets to one tablet a day. But societally and amongst your own peers and strangers, as a man with HIV?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot more knowledge now out there for people living with HIV and for people who are not fully aware of it. But I still think that we're not where we should be. There is still stigma within the community, and there really should be, you know, zero stigma, my apologies, within the community now, you know. You know, after all, you know, this is a medical illness, and we shouldn't be judged on our behaviours, which is what people tend to do.
Sandy, one of the saddest things I read in the notes here is the biggest telltale sign was when someone just disappeared from the gay scene to go back home to whatever country they were from, and you would know the reason that they had gone.
Yeah, in my social circles at the time, you know, I mean, I was young, late teens, very early 20s, and, you know, we would have been aware of, you know, of Rock Hudson and things like that, but we weren't so much, in my age at that time, we felt that we weren't prone to contracting HIV. We weren't really too sure how it was contracted. There was still fear around that. And then when people that we would have known on the social scene disappeared, people would say, where have they gone? Oh, they died of AIDS, you know. And as we all know, it's not AIDS now, as Adam will explain, you know, but that's what all we knew about it at the time. You know?
Okay, well, look, that's a good point to bring Adam back in. And just on that, because there's so much education that's still needed across the board. Adam, the difference between HIV and AIDS?
Yeah, HIV is a virus, the human immunodeficiency virus, and AIDS is the last stage in the progression of HIV. So if HIV goes untreated over a number of years, it weakens the immune system, and it can result in an individual acquiring a collection of illnesses that they would otherwise, be able to fight off, and we call that stage AIDS. So it's a sin. It's set during a time when HIV was emerging as a new virus. Little was known about it. And there were no treatments. And so the show is about the kind of devastation that AIDS caused on this group of gay friends in London in the 80s. So thankfully, these days, it's really rare that a person would advance to that point. But the key there really is regular testing and getting on treatment if you get diagnosed.
It's like everything, isn't it? Regular testing is so important. Will you explain to us what PrEP is? Is it PrEP or PrEP?
Yeah, it's PrEP. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's a pill taken by HIV-negative people before and after sex to prevent HIV. It's that simple. It's free in Ireland. It's to people who meet clinical eligibility criteria, and it's available in most sexual health services. It's a complete game changer when it comes to ending HIV. Taking one pill every day, and it's not something that you need to be concerned of.
And that is a huge positive of that. But yes, the stigma remains, doesn't it? How do we change that?
Yeah, like Sandy was saying, stigma and discrimination is still a really big feature for people living with HIV, and that really shouldn't be the case at all. And I think the really big, I guess, weapon or tool we have against stigma and discrimination is knowledge. The more that we know about HIV, the more we can challenge people's stigmas, and the more that we can kind of move past the experiences that people living with HIV experience. I think one of the biggest things that we can know about HIV is that we have all of the tools we need now to end HIV. So you mentioned PrEP, really important tool in stopping in preventing HIV, but treatment is a really important element, and U equals U, which is undetectable equals untransmittable. It's a really big part of challenging stigma and discrimination, as well as preventing onward transmission of HIV.
And Sandy, just very briefly before we let you go, you're doing your bit to help others as well. Tell us about that and how people can find out more.
Yeah, well, basically Positive Now, as you said, it's really a diverse group of people living with HIV, ensuring that the voices of people living with HIV are heard and represented at all levels while challenging stigma and discrimination. You can contact us at info@positivenow.ie, or HIV Ireland as well is another agency to contact.
And we have that information on screen. Adam and Sandy, a pleasure talking to you both. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Stay safe.
Thank you.